The crystal wine glasses clinked as my brother Bruce raised his for yet another toast. "To success," he announced, his perfect white smile gleaming in our father's meticulously decorated dining room, "and to those who know how to achieve it." I'm Amy, and I was about to experience the most humiliating dinner of my life. "Speaking of success," my father Edward interjected, swirling his expensive Bordeaux, "Bruce just closed another multi-million-dollar merger. Third one this quarter." He beamed at my brother with the pride I'd never seen directed at me. I pushed my untouched salmon around the plate, already knowing where this conversation was heading. The familiar knot formed in my stomach as I felt my mother Lillian's sympathetic glance from across the table. "And what about you, Amy?" Bruce's wife Melina asked, genuine interest in her voice. "How's your documentary coming along?" Before I could answer, Bruce let out a snort. "Oh, right. The one about that small-town recycling scandal? Must be riveting stuff." Actually, I straightened my spine, gripping my fork tighter. It exposed systematic corruption in local government. It's being considered for... Considered for what? My father interrupted. "Another participation trophy? When are you going to grow up and get a real job, Amy?" "Documentary filmmaking is a real job," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'm working on something bigger now. Something that could..." "Could what?" Bruce laughed, looking around the table for support. "Win you tens of dollars instead of just ones?" "Bruce," Melina whispered. But he was on a roll. "Remember when she wanted to be a journalist in college?" Bruce continued, addressing our father. "Thank God she didn't pursue that dead-end career." "Oh, wait." The laughter that followed felt like acid on my skin. Even my mother's weak attempt at changing the subject couldn't drown it out. "I'm investigating corporate fraud," I blurted out, desperate to be taken seriously just once. "Major companies, serious violations. People need to know the truth." The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds before my father set down his wineglass with a sharp clink. "Corporate fraud?" He leaned forward, his amusement morphing into something darker. "You mean harassing legitimate businesses with your amateur camera work and conspiracy theories?" "They're not theories when you have evidence," I shot back, immediately regretting my words as I saw his expression change. "Evidence?" Bruce's lawyer instincts kicked in. "What exactly are you implying, little sister?" "I'm not implying anything," I said, pushing my chair back. "I'm stating facts, and soon everyone else will see them too. Listen to me very carefully." My father's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet tone I remembered from childhood. "You're embarrassing yourself. More importantly, you're embarrassing this family. It's time you stopped playing at being a filmmaker and found something productive to do with your life." "Edward," my mother finally spoke up, "perhaps we should..." "No, Lillian. She needs to hear this." He turned back to me. "Your brother made partner at 30. He has a beautiful home, a respectable career, a family on the way. And what do you have? A camera and delusions of grandeur?" I stood up so quickly, my water glass toppled, spreading across the pristine white tablecloth like a slow-motion disaster. "What I have," I said, my voice shaking with rage, "is integrity, and a story that's going to make you wish you'd taken me seriously." "Sit down," my father commanded. "You're making a scene." "No, I'm making a documentary, and trust me, you'll want to watch this one." I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, ignoring my mother's calls to come back. As I reached for the handle, Bruce's voice carried from the dining room. "Always so dramatic. No wonder nobody takes her seriously." The door slammed behind me with a satisfying bang. In my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Ria, it's me. Remember that footage I told you about? The stuff about Carlton Industries?" I took a deep breath. "I'm ready to go all in. No more playing it safe." My best friend's voice crackled through the speaker. "Are you sure? This could get messy." I thought about the laughter, the dismissal, the years of being the family disappointment. "Good," I said, starting the engine. "Messy is exactly what I'm going for." As I pulled away from my father's mansion, I caught a glimpse of my mother watching from the window. For a moment, I almost felt guilty about what I was about to do. Almost. But they wanted me to make something of myself? Fine. I'd make something they'd never forget. You should see your face right now, Ria said, sliding a coffee across her kitchen counter to me. You've got that look. What look? The one that says you're about to do something either brilliant or stupid. She leaned forward, elbows on the granite. Maybe both. I pulled out my laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as I pulled up my research files. Carlton Industries has been dumping toxic waste in residential areas for years. I have proof, but that's just the surface. And your father's law firm represents them? Ria finished, understanding dawning on her face. Amy, are you sure you want to? Look at this, I interrupted, turning the screen toward her. These are internal emails from their environmental compliance department. 3 deaths in the last year alone, all covered up, all in neighborhoods where people can't afford to fight back. Ria's journalist instincts kicked in as she scanned the documents. How did you get these? Remember Marcus from college? He works in their IT department now. He's been helping me gather evidence for months. This is dynamite, Ria whispered. But you'll need more than just documents. You'll need faces, stories, expert testimony. That's why I called you. I took a deep breath. I need your contacts. Anyone who might be willing to go on record. Ria was already pulling out her phone. There's someone you need to meet, Eduardo Price. He broke the story on that pharmaceutical scandal last year. If anyone knows how to handle something this big, it's him. 2 days later, I sat across from Eduardo in a quiet corner of a downtown cafe, trying not to feel intimidated by his penetrating gaze as he reviewed my footage. Your technical skills are solid, he said finally, closing my laptop. But you're playing it too safe. Where's the anger? I'm plenty angry, I replied. Then show it. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real people being poisoned in their homes while your brother's law firm helps cover it up. I flinched at the mention of Bruce. I want to focus on Carlton Industries, not my family. Eduardo leaned back, studying me. Sometimes the personal angle is what makes a story unforgettable. Why are you really doing this, Amy? Because it's wrong, I said automatically. Try again. I thought about my father's dismissive laugh, Bruce's condescending smirk. Because nobody thinks I can. Better. Now tell me why the audience should care. Because while companies like Carlton Industries poison communities, they're protected by powerful law firms who make sure they never face consequences. Because my own brother... I stopped, emotion threatening to choke me. Go on. Because my own brother sits in board meetings knowing what they're doing, and he doesn't care. Because my father calls me a failure while he profits from their crimes. Because somebody needs to expose the truth, and nobody else will. Eduardo smiled for the first time. Now that's a story worth telling. He pulled out a business card. I have a contact at the EPA who's been building a case against Carlton for years. She's been looking for a platform. Call this number tomorrow. As I reached for the card, he held onto it. But understand something. Once you start down this road, there's no turning back. Your family will never forgive you. They'll have to get in line, I said, taking the card. That night, as I reviewed my footage, my phone buzzed with a text from Melina. Your mother's worried about you. Call her? I ignored it, focusing instead on the interview playing on my screen. A woman stood in her backyard, pointing to the discolored grass and dead plants. My daughter was diagnosed with leukemia last month, she was saying. The doctors can't explain it, but everyone on this street has someone sick. Everyone. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Bruce. Dad's pretty pissed about your little outburst. You should apologize before this gets worse. I thought about the woman in the video, about her daughter fighting for her life while my brother helped hide the truth, about all the times I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and called Eduardo's contact. A woman's voice answered on the second ring. This is Sarah Matthews from the Environmental Protection Agency. Eduardo said you might call. I'm working on a documentary about Carlton Industries, I said. I understand you have information that might interest me. Meet me tomorrow at noon. Bring your camera. She paused. And Amy, be careful who you trust with this. Lives are at stake. As I hung up, another text came through, this time from my mother. Please don't do anything rash, sweetheart. Too late, Mom. Way too late. I turned back to my laptop, where the woman in the video was still speaking. Someone needs to make them answer for what they've done. They will, I whispered to the screen. I promise. Sarah Matthews' office felt smaller than it looked, cramped with filing cabinets and stacks of documents that reached toward the ceiling. She closed the door behind us with a soft click. Everything I'm about to show you is public record, she said, pulling out a thick folder. But nobody's connected the dots yet. I set up my camera as she spread documents across her desk. Carlton Industries has facilities in 12 states. In each location, we've documented increased rates of rare cancers, birth defects, respiratory issues. But every time we get close to proving causation, the evidence disappears, I finished. Or the witnesses back out. Sarah's fingers traced a map marked with red dots. Your brother's firm handles most of their litigation. They're very good at what they do. My camera whirred quietly as it captured her methodically, laying out 20 years of environmental violations, settlements, and suspicious coincidences. Last month, a whistleblower came forward, Sarah continued. Former plant manager. He had documentation, samples, everything we needed. The day before his deposition. She paused, shuffling through papers. What happened? Car accident, single vehicle, no witnesses. The implications hung heavy in the air. My phone buzzed. Another text from Bruce. Dad's hosting a dinner for Carlton's CEO next week. Time to bury the hatchet. Come. I ignored it as Sarah pulled out more files. 3 hours later, I had enough footage to make any corporate lawyer nervous. As I packed up my equipment, Sarah grabbed my arm. There's something else, off the record. I set my camera down. Your father's firm. They're not just representing Carlton, they're shareholders, major ones. My stomach dropped. How major? Enough that if Carlton goes down, your family goes with them. I drove straight to Eduardo's office, my mind racing. He reviewed the footage in silence, occasionally nodding or making notes. This is good, he said finally, but we need more. Someone inside Carlton willing to talk. The last insider died in a convenient accident, I reminded him. Then we need to be smarter. He tapped his pen against his desk. That dinner your brother mentioned, Carlton's CEO will be there? Yes, but perfect. Get yourself invited. I stared at him. You want me to spy on my family? I want you to do your job. Sometimes that means getting your hands dirty. He leaned forward. Unless you're having second thoughts. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Melina. Amy? Thank God you picked up. Listen, I need to tell you something about Carlton Industries. My heart raced. What about them? Not over the phone. Can you meet me? Now? 20 minutes later, I sat across from my sister-in-law at a quiet cafe. Her hands shook as she stirred her untouched coffee. Bruce doesn't know I'm here, she said quietly. He'd kill me if he knew. Knew what? I work in accounting at Carlton. Last week, I found something in the books. Payments to shell companies, millions of dollars. When I asked Bruce about it, she swallowed hard. He told me to forget I saw anything, said it was better not to know. I reached for my phone to record, but she grabbed my hand. No records, please. I'm only telling you this because... She placed a hand on her stomach. I'm pregnant, Amy, and I live less than a mile from one of their facilities. The things I've seen in those financial records, I can't stay quiet anymore. I need proof, Melina. I know. She slid a USB drive across the table. Be careful with this. People who ask too many questions about Carlton tend to disappear. Back home, I plugged in the drive with trembling fingers. Financial records, internal memos, board meeting minutes, enough to prove systematic fraud and environmental violations going back decades. My phone buzzed again. Bruce, Dad insists you come to dinner next week. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. As I typed my response, an email notification popped up from an anonymous address. The subject line made my blood run cold. Carlton Industries, you're asking the wrong questions. The message contained only an address and a time. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., come alone. I called Ria immediately. It could be a trap, she warned, or it could be the smoking gun we need. At least let me come with you. No, I said, thinking of the whistleblower's convenient accident. I need you to be my insurance policy. If I don't call you by 4 tomorrow, release everything we have to every major news outlet. Amy, promise me. She sighed. I promise, but please be careful. I looked at the USB drive glowing softly on my desk, then at Bruce's text about the dinner. Don't worry, I replied to him. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The address led me to an abandoned office building on the outskirts of town. My footsteps echoed through the empty lobby as I checked my phone. 2:57 p.m. Hello? My voice bounced off bare walls. I got your email. Third floor. A man's voice crackled through the old intercom system. Room 312. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back as I climbed the stairs, camera clutched to my chest. The third floor was dark, except for one lit office at the end of the hall. A man sat behind a desk, his face hidden in shadow. Close the door. I did, then positioned myself near the exit. Who are you? Someone who knows what Carlton Industries is really hiding. He leaned forward, light revealing a lined face and tired eyes. And it's much worse than toxic waste. Nah, I'm recording this conversation, I warned. He smiled grimly. Good. Someone needs to document the truth. He slid a thick envelope across the desk. These are shipping manifests from the past 5 years. Carlton isn't just dumping waste. They're importing it, from countries where disposal regulations don't exist. I flipped through the documents, my hands shaking. They're making money on both ends. Billions. Your brother's latest merger? It's with a Chinese disposal company. They're expanding the operation. My camera whirred as I photographed each page. Why are you showing me this? Because my grandson died last month. Rare form of cancer, 3 years old. His voice cracked. I've worked for Carlton for 30 years, kept their secrets, not anymore. A door slammed somewhere below us. The man stiffened. You need to leave. Now. He stood quickly. Take the back stairs. Don't trust anyone, especially... Footsteps thundered up the main stairwell. The man shoved me toward a side door. Go! I ran through the dark hallway, finding the emergency exit just as voices echoed from the office. I took the stairs 2 at a time, burst out into the alley, and didn't stop running until I reached my car. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Bruce. As I caught my breath, it rang again. Where are you? He demanded. Out working. Why? We need to talk. Meet me at Harrison's bar, now. 20 minutes later, I slid into a booth across from my brother. He looked unusually disheveled. Someone's been accessing Carlton's financial records, he said without preamble. Internal documents are missing. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I met his gaze steadily. Why would I? Cut the act, Amy. Melina confessed everything. My blood ran cold. Is she okay? She's fine. Scared, but fine. He rubbed his face. Do you have any idea what you're doing? The people you're dealing with? Do you? I pulled out my phone, played the recording from earlier. 3-year-old children dying of cancer, Bruce. Your client is importing toxic waste from overseas, and you're helping them. It's not that simple. Seems pretty simple to me. These companies provide thousands of jobs, support entire communities. If they go down, children are dying. Lower your voice, he hissed. Listen to me very carefully. There's still time to stop this. Delete your footage. Forget what you've seen, please. Or what? His expression hardened. Or I can't protect you. I don't need your protection. I need you to do the right thing. The right thing? He laughed bitterly. The right thing is protecting our family. Dad's firm would collapse if this gets out. Everything he's built was built on blood money. Bruce slammed his hand on the table. Damn it, Amy. This isn't one of your little documentaries. These people, they make problems disappear permanently. Is that a threat? It's a warning from your brother who loves you. He stood up. You have 24 hours to hand over everything you have. After that, he shook his head. Just do the right thing. As he walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your source from the office building is dead. Heart attack, you're next. I called Eduardo immediately. They're closing in, I said when he answered. I need to release the documentary now. Not yet. We release this wrong, they'll bury it. Trust me. He paused. Come to my office first thing tomorrow. Bring everything you have. We'll do this right. I drove home the long way, checking constantly for tails. In my apartment, I copied all my files to multiple drives, sent one to Ria, another to a secure cloud account. Then, I sat down at my computer and began editing. If anything happened to me, the world would know why. My phone buzzed one last time. Bruce again. 24 hours, Amy. Clock's ticking. I turned back to my screen, where my source's face froze in mid-sentence. Someone needs to tell the truth. Don't worry, I whispered. They will. The knock on my door came at 3 a.m. I froze in front of my editing screen, heart pounding. Amy, it's Melina. Please let me in. I checked the peephole before opening the door. My sister-in-law stood there, mascara streaked down her face. They know, she whispered, rushing inside. They know everything. Bruce has been on the phone all night. They're planning something. Slow down. I locked the door behind her. What exactly did you hear? Carlton's CEO called an emergency board meeting. Bruce said. She wrapped her arms around herself. He said they're handling the situation, permanently. Did he mention the man from the office building? They made it look like a heart attack. Amy, I'm scared. Not just for you. Her hand drifted to her stomach. What have we done? My laptop pinged with an email notification. Eduardo, don't come to the office. They're watching. Meet at alternate location. I need to get my footage somewhere safe, I said, starting to pack my equipment. Bruce will be home soon. He doesn't know I'm here. Melina grabbed my arm. There's something else. Your father. He's not just profiting from Carlton. He's on their board. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Since when? 3 years. It's why he pushed Bruce to handle their accounts. She pulled out her phone, showed me an email chain. They're all connected. The law firm, the waste disposal, the shell companies. Your father's been orchestrating everything. My hands shook as I copied the emails. Does my mother know? I don't think so. But Amy, Melina's voice dropped. The dinner tomorrow night? It's not just a dinner. They're planning to announce Bruce as Carlton's new legal director. They're bringing him inside. Another email from Eduardo popped up. Footage needs to air tomorrow, no later. I have to finish editing, I said, turning back to my computer. Let me help. Melina sat down beside me. I know where all the bodies are buried, literally. We worked through the night, piecing together interviews, documents, and financial records. As dawn broke, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Your father knows you have sensitive documents. Please come home. We can talk about this. Don't reply, Melina warned. They're trying to locate you. By noon, the documentary was ready. I sent copies to Eduardo, Ria, and 3 major news networks. Then I called Sarah at the EPA. It's happening today, I told her. Have your team ready. Be careful, she replied. 2 of my investigators were followed this morning. I turned to Melina. You should go home. It's not safe for you here. It's not safe anywhere. She stood up, wincing. But Bruce will wonder where I am. As if summoned, my phone lit up with his name. Where's my wife? His voice was cold. How should I know? Cut the act. Her car's been parked outside your building all night. This is your last chance, Amy. The dinner's in 6 hours. Bring everything you have. We can fix this. Like you fixed the whistleblower? A long pause. That wasn't... We didn't. He sighed. Just come to dinner. Please, for Mom's sake. After he hung up, Melina touched my shoulder. What are you going to do? I looked at my laptop, where the finished documentary waited to expose decades of corruption and death. Then at my phone, showing the time of tonight's family dinner. I'm going to do both. Amy, no. It's too dangerous. They'll be distracted at dinner. It's the perfect time to release everything. I started gathering my equipment. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. I'm not leaving you alone. You have to. Your baby comes first. I handed her a burner phone. I'll text you when it's done, if you don't hear from me by midnight. She hugged me fiercely. Be careful. After she left, I called Rhea. Everything's ready, she said before I could speak. 3 networks are standing by. Eduardo has his contacts at the international press primed. We just need your signal. I thought about my father's face when he realized his own daughter brought down his empire. About Bruce's reaction when his perfect world crumbled. 8:30 p.m., I said. Release everything. What about you? I looked at my reflection in the window, straightening my shoulders. I'll be having dinner with my family. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. Your father's study, top drawer. The proof you really need. I took a deep breath, checking the time. 5 hours until dinner. 5 hours until I destroyed everything my family had built. Time to set the table. I whispered to my reflection. Hope they're hungry for truth. The security guard at my father's gate barely glanced at me as I drove through. 8:15 p.m. 15 minutes until everything changed. My mother opened the front door before I could knock. Amy, thank God! She hugged me tightly, whispering, whatever's happening, we can fix this as a family. The dining room buzzed with conversation. Bruce stood with Carlton's CEO, Robert, their laughter echoing off the walls. My father held court at the head of the table, commanding attention as always. Ah, the prodigal daughter returns, he announced as I entered. Perfect timing. Robert was just asking about your creative pursuits. Documentaries, right? Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. Fascinating field, though I hear your latest project might need some fact-checking. 8:22 p.m. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket. Actually, I said, accepting a glass of wine from the server, I'd love your input on some of my findings. Bruce's glass froze halfway to his lips. Amy, my father warned, perhaps this isn't the time. When is the time, Dad? After more children die? After you've buried all the evidence in your study's top drawer? The room fell silent. My father's face hardened. Excuse us, everyone. Amy, my office. Now. 8:27 p.m. I followed him down the hallway, Bruce close behind. The study door clicked shut behind us. What do you think you're doing? My father demanded. Wondering why you never told me you were on Carlton's board. I moved toward his desk. 3 years, Dad. All those times you dismissed my career, you were protecting your investment. You don't understand business. I understand right and wrong. I reached for the top drawer. Bruce grabbed my wrist. Don't. 8:30 p.m. My phone buzzed again. I smiled. Too late. The study door burst open. My mother stood there, face pale. Edward, you need to see this. All of you. We followed her to the living room, where the massive TV displayed breaking news. Exclusive. Corporate giant Carlton. Industries linked to mass environmental violations, deaths. Robert stormed in. What is this? My footage played across the screen. The whistleblower's testimony, Sarah's documents, Melina's financial records. Then my father's name appeared, followed by evidence of his direct involvement. You little fool, my father whispered. Do you have any idea what you've done? Destroyed your empire? I pulled open my phone, showing the viewer counts climbing. It's streaming everywhere. International networks are picking it up. Robert grabbed his phone. Get me legal now! But his face told me he knew it was too late. How could you? Bruce advanced on me. Our family. Our family? I laughed. You mean the family that profits from poisoning children? That family? My mother sank into a chair. watching the footage continue. Her hand covered her mouth as photographs of victims appeared, including the whistleblower's 3-year-old grandson. "Edward," she whispered, "tell me you didn't know." His silence was answer enough. The front door slammed open. FBI agents poured in, followed by EPA officials. Sarah Matthews led them, holding a warrant. "Robert Williams, Edward Howard," she announced, "you're under investigation for environmental violations, corporate fraud, and conspiracy." "You can't prove anything," Robert snarled. I pulled out the contents of my father's desk drawer, documents I'd photographed hours earlier while everyone prepared for dinner. "Actually, they can." Dad kept meticulous records. Bruce stared at me, realization dawning. "You were never here for dinner." "No." I handed the documents to Sarah. "I was here for justice." As agents began reading rights and conducting searches, my mother approached me. "I should have stopped him," she said quietly. "I saw the signs, but I chose not to look closer." "Mrs. Howard," an agent interrupted, "we'll need to ask you some questions." My father's voice cut through the chaos as they led him out. "Amy, you'll regret this. Everything I did for this family." "No, Dad." I watched as they escorted him to a waiting car. "You did it for yourself." Outside, news vans were already arriving. Eduardo stood among the reporters, giving me a subtle nod. My phone buzzed with a text from Melina. "Watching the news. Are you okay?" Before I could reply, Bruce grabbed my shoulder. "They're arresting our father, and you're texting. This will destroy us all." I shrugged off his hand. Maybe we needed destroying. As camera flashes lit up the night and reporters shouted questions, I thought about the woman from my first interview, pointing at her poisoned backyard. About the whistleblower, who died trying to expose the truth. About Melina's unborn child, who would now grow up in a cleaner world. "No," I whispered, watching my father's car drive away. We needed saving. 3 days after the arrests, Bruce showed up at my apartment unannounced. His perfect appearance had crumbled. Wrinkled shirt, stubble, dark circles under his eyes. "They're seizing everything," he said, pushing past me into the living room. "The firm's assets, Dad's accounts, even my savings. They're calling it proceeds of crime." "Sit down, Bruce. You look like you're about to fall over." He collapsed onto my couch. "Did you know they're investigating me too? 30 years of practicing law, possibly gone. Are you happy now?" "This isn't about being happy." I perched on the armchair across from him. "It's about doing what's right." "Right?" He laughed bitterly. "Melina's parents won't speak to her. Mom's being questioned daily. Dad's facing 20 years. The family's a laughingstock." My TV murmured in the background, where news channels still dissected the scandal. The documentary had gone viral, sparking investigations across multiple states. "Have you visited him?" I asked quietly. "Dad?" "Yeah." Bruce ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "He's different, broken, keeps saying he should have listened to you years ago." My phone buzzed. Eduardo calling again. Another network wanted an interview. "They're calling you a hero," Bruce said, nodding at the TV. "The brave whistleblower who exposed corporate corruption at the cost of her own family." "I didn't do it for fame." "No?" He leaned forward. "Then why?" "Really?" Before I could answer, someone knocked. I opened the door to find my mother standing there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, then spotted Bruce. "Oh, good, you're both here." She sat beside Bruce, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about where we went wrong as a family." "Mom, don't!" Bruce started. "Let me finish." She turned to me. "Amy, I failed you. Every time your father dismissed your dreams, I stayed silent. Every time Bruce mocked your choices, I looked away." "You were trying to keep the peace," I said. I was being a coward." She straightened her shoulders. "But you weren't. You saw wrong being done, and you fought it, even knowing the cost." Bruce stood up abruptly. So we're celebrating the destruction of our family now? We're acknowledging the truth, Mom shot back, with unexpected steel in her voice. Your father poisoned communities for profit. You helped him hide it. I looked the other way. The only innocent person in this room is Amy. Innocent? Bruce exploded. She betrayed her own blood. No. I stood to face him. I gave you multiple chances to do the right thing. You chose Carlton over conscience every time. I chose family. Family? I grabbed my laptop, pulled up footage of the young cancer victims. Look at these families, Bruce. Look at what your choices did to them. He stared at the screen, at the faces of children fighting for their lives in hospital beds. His anger seemed to deflate. I never meant, he whispered. I didn't think. That's the problem. None of us thought about the real consequences. Mom touched his arm gently. But Amy did. My phone buzzed again. Melina this time. Doctor confirmed, it's twins. Bruce. I showed him the message. You're going to be a father. To twins. What world do you want them to grow up in? He sank back onto the couch, head in his hands. After a long moment, he looked up. The investigators, he said quietly. They've been asking about other companies, similar operations. I've been protecting them too. Bruce, Mom warned. No, she's right. He pulled out his phone. I can't change what I did, but I can stop it from happening again. He dialed a number. This is Bruce Howard. I need to speak to the FBI agent in charge of the Carlton investigation. I'm ready to talk. Mom squeezed my hand as Bruce walked to the window, speaking quietly into his phone. Your father asked to see you, she said softly. I'm not ready. I know, but when you are. She hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Amy. I should have said that years ago. Bruce finished his call, turning back to us with tears in his eyes. They want me to come in tomorrow. Full deposition. He attempted a weak smile. Guess I finally chose the right side. Better late than never, I said. As they prepared to leave, Bruce paused at the door. That first night, at dinner, when we laughed at your documentary dreams. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. You proved us all wrong. After they left, I checked my messages. Eduardo had texted, Major international network wants to fund your next project. Ready to change the world again? I looked at the family photo on my wall, then at the faces of Carlton's victims still frozen on my laptop screen. Yes, I typed back. There's always more truth to tell. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. My father sat across from me, orange jumpsuit replacing his usual tailored suits, looking older than I remembered. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. Neither was I. He gestured at the newspaper between us. The headline read, Carlton Industries executives face criminal charges. Whistleblower documentary sparks global reform. You did what I never could, he said quietly. You chose integrity over profit. It wasn't a choice, Dad. It was the only right thing to do. He nodded slowly. Your brother's testimony. It's going to help a lot of families get justice. Bruce finally found his conscience. Better late than never. He attempted a smile. Like father, like daughter. You're both stubborn as hell once you choose a path. A guard walked past, keys jingling. Through the window, I could see Melina in the waiting room, her twins asleep in their stroller. Bruce sat beside them, reviewing legal documents, now working to help Carlton's victims instead of silencing them. I watched your documentary again last night, my father said. All of it, even the parts about me. He wiped his eyes. Those children, I told myself it wasn't my responsibility, that I was just handling the legal side. Lies are easy when they're profitable. Yes. He placed his hand on the glass between us. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, I was wrong about you, about everything. My phone vibrated. Eduardo texting about our new investigation into similar corporations. We'd already uncovered 3 more Carlton-like operations. The network loved your pitch, my father said, nodding at my phone. I saw the announcement. A whole series exposing corporate corruption? Someone has to keep telling the truth. And you're the perfect person for it. He straightened in his chair. I'm testifying next week, against everyone. No more protecting the guilty. Through the window, I saw my mother arrive, joining Bruce and Melina. She waved, and for the first time in years, her smile reached her eyes. Your mother's different now, my father observed. Stronger. You did that too. She did it herself. We all make our own choices. He nodded at the newspaper again. The families, the ones Carlton hurt, are they getting help? The settlement Bruce negotiated will fund medical care for everyone affected, and the EPA's new regulations mean it can't happen again. Good. He cleared his throat. I have something for you. I asked your mother to bring it. He slid an envelope across the table. Open it. Inside was a letter, dated 15 years ago. My teenage handwriting filled the page, my first pitch for a documentary about local pollution. You kept this? It was the first time you stood up to me, told me money wasn't everything. His voice cracked. I should have listened then. A guard approached. Time's up. My father stood, hands shaking. Amy, I know I don't have the right to ask, but will you come back? I thought about the families finally getting justice, about Bruce's transformation, about my mother's newfound strength. Yes, I said. Not for who you were, but for who you're trying to become. In the waiting room, Melina handed me one of the twins. How was it? Healing, I said, smiling as the baby grabbed my finger. For both of us. Bruce looked up from his documents. The Victim Support Fund is approved. Every family will get what they need. My mother squeezed my shoulder. Your next documentary? Starts filming next week. 3 more companies, same pattern as Carlton. Good, Bruce said firmly. Take them all down. My phone buzzed. Ria sending a link to the latest article about our investigation's impact. Corporate reform laws were changing nationwide. Ready to go? Melina asked. The twins' naming ceremony is in an hour. As we walked out, I glanced back at the visiting room. My father watched through the window, pressing his hand against the glass. I pressed mine back, briefly, before turning away. Outside, the spring air felt clean and fresh. News vans still camped nearby, hoping for comments about the ongoing investigations. But they didn't matter. What mattered was Bruce holding his daughter, finally understanding what truly needed protecting. My mother standing tall, no longer afraid to speak truth to power. Melina planning to testify about other corporate crimes she'd witnessed. And me, I had a new documentary to film, more truth to tell, more justice to fight for. Let's go, I said to my family. We've got work to do. The twins gurgled happily as we drove away from the prison, toward whatever came next. Not an ending, but a beginning. Of accountability, of healing, of change. Sometimes the hardest truth to tell is the one that costs you everything. But sometimes, in losing everything, you find what matters most.
The harsh sound of the alarm clock jolted Hannah back to reality in her bedroom as sunlight streamed through the window. Opening her eyes, she gazed at her sleeping husband Drake's face beside her. Drake was scheduled to leave for an extended business trip next week. Hannah took a deep breath, preparing herself mentally for the new day. Slipping out of bed, Hannah put on her slippers and stepped into the hallway. There, she paused for a moment, her eyes drawn to Katie's bedroom door. That room, empty for 3 months now, stared back at her unchanged. Despite the ache in her heart, Hannah made her way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. As the aroma of coffee filled the house, Hannah took eggs from the refrigerator and cracked them into the frying pan. She smiled upon hearing Drake's footsteps descending the stairs. "Good morning, honey," Drake called out softly. Good morning, Hannah turned to reply. What's on your schedule today? I have a final meeting about the Chicago business trip this afternoon. Should be home in time for dinner. They shared a peaceful conversation over breakfast. However, the family photo on the table silently spoke of Katie's absence. After breakfast, Hannah headed to the elementary school where she worked. In her third-grade classroom, she greeted her students with a warm smile. Good morning, everyone. Hannah called out cheerfully. Good morning, Mrs. Brown, the children responded energetically. As class began, Hannah wrote math equations on the blackboard, carefully explaining each step. Watching her students' earnest expressions, she reaffirmed her sense of purpose as a teacher. During break time, she also provided individual guidance to students struggling with homework. Jessica, here's how you think about this problem, Hannah explained gently. Oh, I understand now. Thank you, teacher. Jessica's eyes lit up. After school, Hannah exchanged brief small talk with her colleagues before heading home. When she arrived, Drake was already there, starting dinner preparations. I'm home, Hannah called out, and Drake turned with a smile. Welcome back. I'm making lasagna tonight. They worked together to finish preparing dinner and sat down at the table. Over wine, Drake began explaining the details of his trip. It'll take about 3 weeks. I'll try to get back as soon as I can. Hannah nodded silently. Then, the inevitable topic arose. About Katie. Hannah hesitantly began. Is there any new information? Drake let out a deep sigh. No word from the police. But we can't give up. Hannah gripped Drake's hand, tears welling in her eyes. We'll find her, I know we will. Drake gently embraced Hannah and whispered, yes, we'll keep trying together. The next day, Drake began preparing for his trip. While packing clothes into his suitcase, he occasionally glanced at Hannah. She helped him silently, suppressing her loneliness. In the car heading to the airport, Drake held Hannah's hand once again. Call me immediately if anything happens. Hannah nodded and said, take care. After seeing him off and returning home, Hannah let out a deep sigh in the silent house. As night fell, she sat alone on the living room sofa, staring at the television. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise from upstairs. Hannah stiffened, looking up at the ceiling. Just then, the doorbell rang. Hannah nervously opened the door to find her mother-in-law Rebecca standing there. Good evening, Hannah, Rebecca's voice was cold. Rebecca, what brings you here so late? Hannah asked, bewildered. Rebecca walked into the living room and sat on the sofa without a word. I came to check on you since Drake's away on his trip. Though uncomfortable, Hannah prepared tea. After taking a sip, Rebecca spoke in a stern tone. Hannah, do not enter the attic under any circumstances. Do you understand? Hannah's eyes widened in surprise. What? Why? Don't ask questions. Just promise me. Rebecca's eyes were sharp, piercing through Hannah. Hannah nodded reluctantly. Satisfied, Rebecca stood up, saying, "Well, I'll be going now," and left. After the door closed, Hannah looked up at the ceiling again. The attic door seemed to look down at her, as if concealing a secret. In Hannah's heart, anxiety and curiosity began to mingle. When Hannah returned from school, she found her son Ethan playing video games on the living room sofa. This was usually his homework time. Hannah frowned as she called out to him. "Ethan, what about your homework?" Ethan answered without taking his eyes off the screen. "I finished it." Hannah sat next to her son and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Did something happen? You seem different." Ethan finally met Hannah's eyes. Anxiety clouded his gaze. "Mom, about Katie." Ethan's voice trailed off. Hannah's heart jumped. "About Katie? Did something happen?" Ethan took a deep breath and continued. "Today at school, I was talking with friends about Katie. And then. Hannah listened with bated breath. "Someone said they saw Katie." "But that's impossible, right?" Hannah embraced her son. "Ethan, thank you for worrying about Katie. But it's better not to believe such rumors. The police are working hard to find her." Ethan nodded, but anxiety still lingered in his expression. At dinner, Ethan was quieter than usual. Though concerned about her son's behavior, Hannah avoided pressing him too hard. After the meal, Ethan said, "I'm tired," and retired to his room early. Late at night, Hannah woke to a noise. Looking at the clock, it was past 2 a.m. Stepping into the hallway, she saw Ethan's bedroom door was open. "Ethan?" Hannah called softly, and her son's voice replied from the direction of the stairs. "Mom." His voice was tinged with fear. Hannah hurried down the stairs. In the dim living room, she saw Ethan's small figure. He was looking up at the ceiling, pointing with a trembling finger. "What's wrong?" Hannah placed her hand on her son's shoulder. Ethan answered in a shaking voice. "I hear Katie's voice, from up there." Hannah caught her breath. Rebecca's warning flashed through her mind. "Do not enter the attic." However, seeing her son's anxious expression made Hannah's heart waver. "Can you really hear it?" Hannah asked gently. Ethan nodded desperately. "Yes, it's faint, but I think she's asking for help." Hannah took a deep breath and made her decision. "All right. Mom will go check. Wait here." Ethan looked up at Hannah anxiously. "I want to go too." "No. Please wait here," Hannah said firmly. Hannah nervously placed her hand on the attic ladder. Rebecca's warning echoed in her head, "Do not enter the attic." However, thinking of Katie, she couldn't hesitate any longer. As she climbed the ladder one rung at a time, Hannah's heart was pounding. Her hands trembled, and cold sweat ran down her back. After reaching the final rung and placing her hand on the attic entrance, Hannah took a deep breath. "Katie?" Hannah called out softly. No response. Gathering her courage, Hannah opened the attic door. A dark space spread before her, the dusty air tickling her nose. Moonlight streaming through a small window cast eerie shadows of furniture and boxes. Hannah cautiously took a step forward. The floorboard creaked, making her shudder. She explored the attic slowly, shining her flashlight around. Old furniture, cardboard boxes, dusty mirrors, everything showed signs of long disuse. Hannah's eyes fixed on a large trunk placed in the corner of the room. Nervously approaching, she placed her hand on the trunk's lid. Taking a deep breath, she slowly opened it. Inside were old clothes and photo albums. However, what caught Hannah's attention was a familiar stuffed animal placed on top. Katie's favorite teddy bear. Hannah gasped. This teddy bear should have disappeared along with Katie when she went missing. Why was it here? Searching further in the trunk, she found Katie's diary and clothes that should have been recently purchased. Questions swirled in Hannah's mind. Were all these items placed here after Katie's disappearance? Suddenly, Ethan's voice called from below. "Mom! Are you okay?" Hannah came to her senses and quickly closed the trunk. "I'm fine, I'm coming down now." As she left the attic, Hannah's heart was full of confusion and anxiety. Was Katie in this house? If so, why wouldn't she show herself? And what did mother-in-law Rebecca know? When she descended the ladder, an anxious-faced Ethan was waiting. Hannah embraced her son and said, "There was nothing there. It must have been your imagination." However, Hannah herself knew best that these words were a lie. Various thoughts raced through Hannah's mind about what she should do next. Should she contact Drake? Should she consult the police? Or, should she first talk with mother-in-law Rebecca? Hannah let out a deep sigh as she led Ethan back to his room. "It's late. Let's go to bed." Lying in bed, Hannah stared at the ceiling. The secret of the attic weighed heavily upon her. What action should she take tomorrow? Hannah spent the long night lost in thought. In the kitchen where morning sunlight streamed in, Hannah had strengthened her resolve after a sleepless night of contemplation. Sipping coffee, she recalled the events in the attic last night. Finding Katie's belongings, and mother-in-law Rebecca's strange warning. These couldn't be mere coincidences. Hannah picked up her cell phone and held down Drake's name. However, she canceled the call just before it started ringing. There wasn't solid evidence yet. She might just worry Drake needlessly. Hannah let out a deep sigh. "Mom, good morning." Ethan's voice brought Hannah back to reality. "Good morning, Ethan. Did you sleep well?" Ethan shook his head. "Well, not really." Hannah sat next to her son and gently put her arm around his shoulders. "Ethan, Mom wants to investigate something about Katie. Will you help me?" Ethan's eyes lit up. "Yes." Hannah told Ethan about what she had found in the attic last night. Then she explained her plan to ask around town today. "But keep it a secret. Don't tell Grandma or Dad," Hannah said with a serious expression. Ethan nodded with a mature look. "I understand, Mom. I'll help you properly." After finishing breakfast, Hannah and Ethan headed into town. Their first stop was the house of Katie's best friend Lana. Her mother came to the door. "About Katie?" "Yes, I've been so worried about her. But recently, she trailed off." "Recently?" Hannah prompted. "Well, it's probably just my imagination, but last week, I thought I saw someone who looked like Katie late at night." Hannah's heart raced. "Where did you see her?" "At the corner of Willow Street." But she disappeared quickly. Next, they visited Katie's violin teacher's house. The teacher shook her head sadly. "I'm sorry, but I have no information about Katie. I miss hearing her play, though." As they went around town, Hannah heard strange rumors. There were multiple accounts of seeing an unknown girl at night. However, no one could definitively say it was Katie. In the afternoon, Hannah and Ethan visited the library. Ethan eagerly began researching local history books. Hannah was flipping through old local newspaper articles. Suddenly, Ethan called out in a small voice. "Mom, look at this." The photo he pointed to showed a young Rebecca. However, the name was different. Michelle White. Hannah read aloud involuntarily. "That's not Grandma's name, is it?" Ethan asked curiously. Hannah tilted her head. Rebecca should have been married to Drake's father by the time this photo was taken. Why was there a different name? As they were leaving the library, Hannah was stopped by Monica, the librarian. "Hannah, were you researching Rebecca?" Monica's voice was low, as if watching out for others. "Yes, I was curious about something." Hannah tried to appear calm. Monica continued hesitantly. "There have been various rumors about her for years. Especially about her life before coming to this town." Just then, the library door opened as another patron entered. Monica abruptly cut off her conversation, saying, "We'll talk later," before walking away. When they returned home, Hannah found Rebecca standing at the front door. Her expression was more severe than usual, as if she had something to say. "Mother-in-law, what brings you here?" Hannah asked, trying to maintain her composure. "Hannah, we need to talk." Rebecca's voice was cold. Once they entered the living room, Rebecca suddenly changed the subject. "Have you been up to the attic recently?" Hannah hesitated for a moment. "No, I haven't gone up there, just as you said." Rebecca stared intently into Hannah's eyes. "Good. I'm glad." Then she stood up, saying, "I'm going to get something I forgot," and headed toward the attic ladder. As Hannah watched Rebecca's back disappear up the ladder, she felt her heart rate increase. What was Rebecca hiding? And where was Katie? These questions grew larger and larger in Hannah's mind. Late that night, after the family had gone to bed, Hannah quietly made her way to the attic. She was concerned about Rebecca's visit earlier and wanted to check for any new clues. Climbing the ladder carefully with her flashlight in hand, she ascended into the dusty space. Upon entering the attic, the musty air tickled her nose. Hannah looked around and noticed the old trunk Rebecca had approached earlier. Slowly opening the lid, she found an aged photo album inside. Hannah gasped. The album cover read, Michelle White's Memories. It was the same name she'd seen at the library. With trembling hands, she turned the pages, revealing photo after photo of a young Rebecca. However, beside her was an unfamiliar man. Could this be Rebecca's ex-husband? Hannah whispered to herself. Turning more pages, she discovered a letter tucked inside. Written in young Rebecca's, or rather, Michelle's, handwriting on yellowed paper. Dear Tom. We may never meet again. But this is the only way I can escape your violence. I'm starting a new life. Please don't try to find me. Goodbye, Michelle. Hannah finished reading the letter, overwhelmed by complex emotions. The truth about Rebecca's past was gradually coming to light. The next morning, Hannah saw Ethan off to school. However, that afternoon, she received a call from the school. Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry, but Ethan seems to be absent from his afternoon classes. Hannah exclaimed in surprise. What? But this morning. Rushing into town in panic, Hannah searched everywhere for Ethan. Finally, she spotted him in front of an old movie theater. However, there was another person with him, an unknown man. Hannah hid behind a corner, trying to hear their conversation. About your sister. Yes, I think I saw someone who looked like her, the man's voice carried over. Ethan's voice followed. Really? Where did you see her? Hannah held her breath. Ethan had begun his own investigation. While worried, she couldn't help but admire her son's courage. That night, Hannah began researching Rebecca's hometown on her computer. When she searched the small town's name, she found a newspaper article from 30 years ago. Local businessman arrested for domestic violence, the headline read. Hannah's eyes widened. Reading further, she saw the victim's name was Michelle White. And the perpetrator was Thomas White, the man from the album. With trembling hands, Hannah picked up her phone and called Monica at the library. Monica, I need to know about Rebecca. I mean, Michelle White. On the other end of the line, Monica sighed. So you found out? Yes, Rebecca was really named Michelle White. Monica continued, 30 years ago, she came to this town to escape her abusive husband. She changed her name and started a new life. Hannah was speechless. Rebecca's past suffering and her courage to start anew, everything was starting to make sense. But why would she take Katie? Hannah began, but Monica interrupted. That I don't know. But Rebecca must have her reasons. After hanging up, Hannah stared out the window. In the darkness of night, she could see the small window of the attic. Was Katie up there? And what was Rebecca trying to protect? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Hannah looked at the clock. It was past 10 p.m. Who could it be? Nervously opening the door, she found Rebecca standing there. Her expression was more serious than Hannah had ever seen before. Hannah, we need to talk, Rebecca's voice trembled. It's time I told you everything. Hannah nodded silently and invited Rebecca into the living room. It was going to be a long night. The moment of truth had finally arrived. Hannah glanced at the clock, feeling anxiety spread through her chest. It was past 3 p.m., and Ethan still hadn't returned home. He usually came back by 2:30. She had sent multiple messages to his cell phone, but there was no response. He must have stopped at a friend's house, she told herself while looking out the window. But there was no sign of Ethan on the street. By 3:30, Hannah couldn't wait any longer and left the house. She first went to the home of Mike, Ethan's best friend. Mike's mother apologetically shook her head. "I'm sorry, Hannah. Ethan hasn't been here." Next, she called the school. "Ethan left after his last class ended," was the response, which only increased Hannah's anxiety. She ran around town, calling Ethan's name. The park, the library, his favorite ice cream shop. Her son was nowhere to be found. As the sun began to set, Hannah debated whether to call the police. However, thinking of Rebecca's secret and Katie's situation made her hesitate. "Hannah!" Suddenly, a voice called from behind. Turning around, she saw Rebecca standing there. "Mother-in-law. Ethan is." Hannah explained the situation, tears welling in her eyes. Rebecca's expression darkened. "Let's go back home. There's something I need to tell you." Back at the house, Rebecca sat on the living room sofa. Her posture suggested she carried a heavy burden of many years. "Hannah, Rebecca faltered, searching for words. "My real name is Michelle White." Hannah caught her breath. "I know. But why?" Rebecca, or rather, Michelle, let out a deep sigh. 30 years ago, I fled from my abusive husband. I changed my name and started a new life. Then I met Drake's father." Tears glistened in her eyes. "But the past doesn't disappear so easily. My ex-husband kept searching for me." Hannah asked in a trembling voice, "What does this have to do with Katie and Ethan?" Michelle raised her face and looked straight into Hannah's eyes. "Katie, she discovered my secret. She found threatening letters from my ex-husband." Hannah gasped. "So, Katie." Hannah jumped from her chair the moment Rebecca finished her confession. "Where's Katie?" Her voice trembled. Rebecca let out a deep sigh. "At my house. Let's go." The two rushed to Rebecca's house. Hannah's hands shook as she drove, her knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Rebecca sat silently in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing at Hannah. Upon arriving at Rebecca's house, Hannah quickly jumped out of the car. "Hurry! Where's Katie?" Rebecca slowly entered the house and stopped in front of a large bookshelf in the living room. "Hannah, are you ready?" Hannah could barely contain her impatience, crying out, "What are you talking about? Let me see my daughter." Rebecca quietly placed her hand on one of the books and pulled. To Hannah's surprise, the entire bookshelf moved, revealing a hidden door. Hannah caught her breath. Such a mechanism. Rebecca placed her hand on the door and slowly opened it. Katie, it's all right. Mom's here. As the door opened, a small, dimly lit room appeared. There was a thin figure of a girl inside. Katie! Hannah cried out and rushed into the room. Katie initially squinted at the light, but when she heard Hannah's voice, she looked up. Mom! Her voice was weak and uncertain. Hannah embraced her daughter tightly. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Thank goodness, thank goodness. Katie also clung to Hannah, hugging her tightly. I'm sorry, Mom. I was scared. The two held each other wordlessly, just crying. 3 months of separation seemed to melt away in an instant. Rebecca watched this scene from the doorway with a complex expression. Hannah, Katie. I'm so sorry, tears glistened in her eyes as well. Hannah finally lifted her face from Katie and looked at Rebecca. Her emotions were mixed, anger, relief, and complicated feelings. Why did you do this? Rebecca knelt on the floor and took Katie's hand. It was to protect you. But I realize now that it was wrong. Katie nodded slightly. Grandma, it's okay now, right? That scary person won't come anymore. Hannah looked at her daughter in surprise. Scary person. Rebecca took a deep breath and said, I'll explain everything. But first, let's move Katie to a proper room. As the three moved to the living room, Hannah's head was full of questions. Along with the relief of finding Katie came new anxieties. And the thought of Ethan, still missing, weighed heavily on her heart. The tension in the living room was palpable when the front door slowly opened. I'm home. Ethan's small voice echoed, and everyone's eyes turned to him at once. Hannah jumped up and embraced her son tightly. Ethan! Where have you been? Do you know how worried we all were? Ethan made himself small in his mother's arms, wearing an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, Mom. I was worried about Katie. Hannah gripped her son's shoulders and looked at him seriously. What happened? Tell me everything. Ethan took a deep breath and began explaining. I've been having dreams about Katie lately. In the dreams, Katie was calling for help. Tears glistened in his eyes. So I thought I had to find her. He continued, after school, I went to the library. Monica helped me look through old town records. Then. Ethan hesitated for a moment but looked at Rebecca. I found Grandma's old name. Michelle White. Rebecca sighed and quietly began speaking. You discovered my past. Ethan nodded. Yes. Then I decided to investigate more, so I went to the town where Grandma used to live. Hannah gasped. By yourself? Yes, Ethan answered quietly. I took the bus. There. I met Grandma's ex-husband, our real grandfather. The room fell silent. Rebecca's face turned pale. Ethan quickly added, but it's okay. I didn't tell him my name or our real relationship. I just said I was there doing research. He pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket. This is Grandpa's address. I thought we should give it to the police. Hannah embraced her son again, this time with a mixture of relief and pride. Ethan, you were very brave. But it was so dangerous, you know. Ethan buried his face in his mother's chest. I know. But it was for our family. I wanted to help Katie. I wanted to help you and Dad. Katie quietly approached Ethan and took her brother's hand. Thank you, Ethan. I'm here now because you never gave up on me. The whole family gathered around Ethan, expressing their gratitude for his courage and love. Rebecca knelt before her grandson and apologized through tears. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Because Grandma kept everything hidden, you were put in such danger. Ethan gently hugged Rebecca. It's okay, Grandma. We're family. Family helps each other. At that moment, everyone smiled through their tears. They all felt the family bond that had grown stronger through this ordeal. As Hannah watched her son's growth and courage, she realized the changes this experience had brought to their lives. This adventure, which began with fear and distrust, had ultimately taught them about love, understanding, and the importance of family bonds. From this day forward, the Brown family vowed to build more open relationships without secrets. And they renewed their determination to overcome any difficulties that might arise by working together as a family. The next morning, the Browns headed to the local police station in a somber atmosphere. Hannah held Katie and Ethan's hands while Drake had his hand gently placed on Rebecca's shoulder. Inside, they were greeted by veteran Detective Thompson. Please, have a seat, Detective Thompson said in a gentle voice. Rebecca, or should I say, Michelle. Please tell us your story. Rebecca took a deep breath and began telling her story in a trembling voice. The domestic violence from 30 years ago, her escape, the beginning of a new life, and the recent threats from her ex-husband. As she spoke, the detective's expression grew increasingly serious. I understand, the detective said quietly. We'll do everything we can. We'll issue a protection order, increase patrols, and if necessary, arrange for you to move to a safe location. Hannah leaned forward. Detective, we won't run. This town is our family's home. We want to start a new life here. The detective nodded. I respect that courage. We'll support you with everything we have. Leaving the police station, the family held new determination in their hearts. Back home, Drake called a family meeting. From now on, we'll be honest and open with each other, Drake said quietly but firmly. We're family. We'll overcome any difficulties together. Everyone nodded and joined hands. In that moment, they felt they had become a true family, in every sense of the word. As days passed, the attitudes of the townspeople began to change. Those who had initially looked at the Brown family with confusion and distrust were moved by their sincerity and strength. At a PTA meeting, Katie's best friend Lana's mother stood up. We need to understand and support each other more. There's so much we can learn from the Brown family's courageous actions. Monica, the librarian, set up a special corner in the library about domestic violence and child protection. Knowledge can help, she said with a gentle smile to Hannah. At the local church, a special prayer service was held for Rebecca. The pastor spoke during his sermon, forgiveness, understanding, and new beginnings. That's the strength of our community. As months passed and autumn arrived, a peaceful routine returned to the Brown family's life. One Sunday afternoon, the whole family was enjoying a picnic in the backyard. Katie and Ethan were teaching Rebecca how to play chess. "Grandma, this piece moves like this," Ethan explained enthusiastically. Rebecca laughed softly. "You two are so smart. Grandma can't keep up at all." Katie took Rebecca's hand. "It's okay, Grandma. We'll teach you. That's what family does." At those words, tears glistened in Rebecca's eyes. "Thank you, both of you." Hannah and Drake watched the scene from a short distance away. "They really are wonderful children." Hannah rested her head on her husband's shoulder. Drake pulled his wife closer and replied, "Yes, thanks to you." That night, after the children had gone to bed, Hannah went to her study. She sat down at her computer and took a deep breath before facing the screen. Chapter 1: Searching for Lost Bonds. Hannah quietly began typing. She had decided to turn their experiences over the past few months into a book. Family bonds are sometimes tested by trials. However, when we overcome these trials, the bonds become stronger. This is our family's story. A journey that began with fear and distrust, and led us to find love, understanding, and true connection. As she wrote, Hannah looked out the window. Moonlight gently illuminated the garden. There, she could feel new hope and the strengthened bonds of their family. She smiled and turned back to her keyboard, hoping that this story would reach the hearts of others who might be suffering in similar ways. As Hannah typed the final words, she felt a profound sense of peace. Their family had gone through an incredible ordeal, but they had emerged stronger, more united, and with a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be family. The secrets that had once threatened to tear them apart had ultimately brought them closer together. She saved her work and closed her laptop, walking to the window to gaze at the peaceful night sky. In the rooms above, her children slept safely. Down the street, Rebecca too was at peace, finally free from the shadows of her past. And beside her, Drake slept soundly, their family whole once again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them together, as a family. Their story wasn't just about overcoming fear and uncovering secrets. It was about the healing power of truth, the strength of family bonds, and the courage to begin anew. Hannah smiled as she turned away from the window. Their journey had taught them that sometimes the darkest moments can lead to the brightest beginnings. And now, their family story would live on, offering hope to others who might need it most. In the scorching heat of Scottsdale, Arizona, amidst a row of elegant mansions, Margaret Thompson was anxiously taking a phone call. She hadn't even finished washing the dishes from her Eggs Benedict breakfast. "Mrs. Maggie, I'm so sorry, but there's something concerning about Tommy." On the other end of the line was the teacher's room at Desert Mountain Elementary School. The voice belonged to Sarah Johnson, Maggie's colleague of 30 years who was now Tommy's teacher. Her usually calm tone carried a hint of tension. "He's been wearing the same shirt for a week now. And there are bruises on his arms. Yesterday, he refused to change for PE class." Maggie caught her breath. Just yesterday at Sunday service, her grandson had shown his usual adorable smile. At First Presbyterian Church's Sunday school, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He had hummed along to the hymns and listened intently to the Bible stories as always. When I checked with his parents, they said, "The house is just a bit messy during renovations." But Sarah's voice trailed off. In Maggie's mind flashed the social media posts of her son David and his new wife Ashley. Photos showing perfect smiles. The two of them playing the ideal family on their YouTube channel with 500,000 subscribers. Between videos about how to succeed in real estate investment, they would lecture about how to create a happy family. "Mrs. Maggie, we teachers have a duty to report. But I thought first, you might." Outside the window, Scottsdale's merciless sun beat down relentlessly. In her air-conditioned room, Maggie felt an icy chill of anxiety. Her lunch plans with her book club friends suddenly seemed very distant. A year ago, when Ashley joined the family, things had started to change gradually. A beauty influencer boasting 300,000 Instagram followers, she played the role of the perfect stepmother. It had been just 2 years since David's first wife, Tommy's mother, had died in a car accident. Their marriage had been sudden. Lately, Ashley had been posting more about her fertility treatments. Under the title, "Dreams of a New Family," she shared her journey on social media. Each post garnered tens of thousands of likes. Below them, David would always comment, "Best wife ever," or "Such an understanding mother." Maggie stood up and looked out the kitchen window. The spire of First Presbyterian Church gleamed in the morning sun. Tommy had been with her as usual on Sunday. Come to think of it, he did seem a bit thinner. But when they had ice cream together at AJ's Fine Foods, his smile had seemed genuine. Since losing her husband George 3 years ago, Sundays with Tommy had become Maggie's reason for living. Baking chocolate chip cookies, playing in the neighborhood park, reading at the library. These promises had become their mutual support. She remembered discussing how to recognize child abuse at the Retired Teachers Association meeting. The words, "children's changes always show up as signs," now came back to her with new weight. "Thank you, Sarah. I'll check right away." After hanging up, Maggie stared at the photo on her refrigerator. It was taken the day she decided to spend every Sunday with Tommy after her husband's funeral. Her grandson, only 4 at the time, had tried his best to smile through the grief. Maggie made up her mind. This might be a danger signal that her instincts as a former teacher were picking up. Her more than 30 years of teaching experience was whispering, something's wrong. She canceled her yoga class and grabbed her car keys. As she drove through Scottsdale's quiet residential streets, she thought with an almost prayer-like feeling. Please, let this just be me being over-anxious. But deep down, she already knew. She had to act now. At 2 p.m., under Arizona's merciless sun, Maggie's car quietly pulled up in front of David's mansion. Similar grand houses lined the street, their perfectly manicured lawns reflecting the light. She pressed the intercom, but there was no response. David's luxury car wasn't there. Ashley's BMW was nowhere to be seen. She pressed again. Silence continued. Officially, David and Ashley were supposed to be away on a business trip for social media filming. Their latest posts showed them creating the perfect couple's holiday on a San Diego beach. But considering Tommy's condition at school, Maggie couldn't wait. Walking along the paved pathway, Maggie reflected on how her son and daughter-in-law had changed. Since Ashley joined the family, the house's atmosphere had changed dramatically. Old family photos had disappeared, replaced by Ashley's beauty products and ring lights for selfies. Even Tommy's drawings had quietly vanished from the walls. As she headed toward the backyard, she heard a faint sound. The once well-maintained garden was now overgrown with weeds. The rose bed had withered, and the small vegetable garden was in ruins. She noticed an old SUV parked in the shadow of the garage. Its windows seemed to be covered with cardboard from the inside. Her instincts told her something's wrong. "Tommy," Maggie called softly. A slight noise from the car. Then, "Grandma, help me." When she heard that weak voice, Maggie's blood ran cold. It had the same resonance as the voices of abused children she had encountered several times during her teaching career. She carefully approached and opened the driver's side door. Heat and a lived-in smell filled the car. An Arizona summer car interior was like an oven. A dirty futon was laid on the floor, with clothes scattered about. An extension cord ran through the window, powering a small fan that was barely running. The bottled water was warm from the heat. And there was Tommy, curled up trembling in the back seat. His once adorable smile was gone, replaced by an expression worn down by fear and exhaustion. "Tommy. Grandma. I'm sorry. I'm a bad boy." The bruises weren't just on his arms. They were on his back and legs too. Bruises in various stages, from new to old, overlapped. There were half-eaten snack bags scattered about, and signs that he had tried to do homework under a flashlight. His school backpack was carefully placed in a corner, with textbooks and notebooks surprisingly neatly arranged inside. "How long have you been here?" Tommy's voice trembled. "About 2 weeks. I get up early and sneak in through the back door to take a shower. I make sure no one sees me. I keep the shower sound quiet. What about food? Are you hungry?" "School lunch, and sometimes Mommy brings me bread." "But..." Tommy choked on his words. "She says she wants a baby. She says the baby won't come if I'm around." With those words, Maggie understood everything. Ashley's fertility treatments. Her perfect stepmother act on social media. And a 6-year-old stepson treated as an unwanted obstacle. What about Daddy? Does Daddy know? Tommy nodded slightly. Daddy doesn't want to upset Mommy. He says the YouTube view count is important. Looking around the car, she could see Tommy's desperate efforts. His clothes showed signs of hand washing, and his textbooks were carefully wrapped in plastic. It was as if he was trying to be a good boy, even in these harsh conditions. Maggie took out her phone and started taking pictures. The car's condition, Tommy's bruises, traces of living, she documented everything. She recorded video too. For the first time since losing her husband, she felt real anger. "Tommy, it's going to be okay now. Grandma will definitely help you." She hugged her grandson. His small body was trembling. His cheeks, wet with sweat and tears, still showed traces of childhood. "But Daddy and Mommy will be angry. Don't worry. This is wrong. No matter what the reason, you should never treat a child like this." Maggie steeled her resolve. Before calling her son and his wife, she needed to gather evidence and make necessary preparations. This was no longer just a family matter. It was about the life and dignity of a human being, of a child. From the sweltering car, Maggie dialed David's number with trembling fingers. Her phone screen displayed the evidence photos she had just taken. Tommy was curled up small in the passenger seat, wrapped in his grandmother's old cardigan. The phone rang several times before finally connecting. "Mom, I'm kind of busy right now." In the background, she could hear waves. A woman's laughter. The response came from a luxury resort in San Diego. "David, we need to talk about Tommy." Maggie tried to keep her voice as calm as possible. "Huh? Tommy's fine. School is." Ashley's voice interrupted. "We're filming at a luxury resort right now. Don't interfere with our important work." Her voice held none of the kindness she showed in her social media posts. "Don't interfere." Maggie's voice trembled low. "You two have. David, our followers are waiting. This fertility treatment documentary could lead to a contract." Ashley's voice urged in the background. "Mom, let's talk later. This is our important time." David's voice. No trace of her former son remained. Waves, laughter, the sound of champagne glasses clinking. "I found Tommy," Maggie said quietly. "Living alone in a car." A moment of silence. "That's because of the home renovation." David's voice carried a hint of unease. "Renovation?" Maggie's voice turned ice cold. "You mean turning Tommy's room into a beauty room? And making your son sleep in a car? In this Arizona heat?" "Mom, if we talk, you'll understand." Ashley's voice cut in. "That child is preventing me from having a baby. He's interfering with my treatment." Her voice was now hysterical. "David Thompson," Maggie said in the stern voice she had cultivated over 30 years of teaching. "You will come back right now. Otherwise, the next conversation will be with the police and child services." "Mom, don't threaten us." "Our channel." "Channel?" Maggie scoffed. I wonder how your 500,000 subscribers would react to a video of your son sleeping in a car. On the other end, hurried noises. Ashley's cry of, "Are you trying to ruin everything?" David's voice saying, "Calm down. Come home within 2 hours. Or else." Maggie hung up. Looking at Tommy trembling in the car, Maggie was considering her next move. She had enough evidence. Now. Her phone vibrated. A flood of messages. "Mom, please. Don't ruin our lives. This is none of your business. Don't interfere. We can settle this for any amount." Maggie ignored them all. Instead, she called Jennifer, a former student who now worked at Child Services. "Jenny, this is Margaret Thompson. It's an emergency." While she explained the situation on the phone, another police car arrived. Neighbors were peering from their windows. Some were pointing smartphones. "Tommy," Maggie spoke gently to her grandson. "Things might be a bit difficult for a while. But Grandma will always be right here with you. Daddy and Mommy will be angry." Tommy's voice was filled with anxiety. "Sometimes, adults make wrong choices. But you're not at fault. Absolutely not at fault." Maggie took a deep breath. In over 30 years of teaching, she had faced numerous abuse cases. But this was different. This was abuse by her own son. Betrayal of her own grandson. And now, it was time to put an end to it all. Police sirens echoed through Scottsdale's elegant residential area. Red and blue lights crossed over perfectly manicured lawns. Breaking the silence of the upscale neighborhood, David's Porsche screeched to a halt. "What is the meaning of this?" David jumped out of the driver's seat, still in his beachwear. His eyes behind his sunglasses were filled with anger and fear. Ashley got out of the passenger seat. She wore only a designer swimsuit with a cardigan thrown over it. Clutching the latest iPhone, she was desperately trying to delete something. "It's all ruined, everything." Her muttering had taken on a hysterical tone. Then, Child Services worker Jennifer Wilson approached. "Mr. David Thompson, Mrs. Ashley Thompson. This is a misunderstanding." David shouted. "The house is under renovation." "Renovation?" Maggie said as she got out of the car. "Then what's this?" Photos and videos recorded on the smartphone. Evidence of life in the car. Tommy's bruises all over his body. Neighbors were coming out onto the street one after another. Residents of the luxury neighborhood. People who usually pretended to be indifferent to each other were now all fixated on this scene. Smartphone cameras flashed here and there. "Ma'am," one of the officers reached for Ashley's smartphone. "Due to suspicion of evidence tampering, we'll need to temporarily confiscate that device." "No!" Ashley screamed. "My followers want to see a perfect family. That child is in the way. I want a baby." Her voice turned hysterical. "A perfect family." Maggie's voice was freezing cold. "Making your son sleep in a car. in this scorching heat. At that moment, Tommy came out of the car. His small body was still wrapped in Maggie's cardigan. "Daddy." With that one word, the blood drained from David's face. "Little one," Jennifer spoke gently. "Shall we go to the hospital? And could you tell us your story?" Tommy looked up at Maggie uncertainly. "Grandma, will you come with me?" "Of course." Maggie held her grandson's small hand. "Wait!" Ashley screamed. "If that child is at home, my treatment, my followers." "Be quiet." Maggie's voice thundered. "David, I'll tell you this too. As a father, as a human being, you made the worst possible choice. If George were alive, how sad he would be." David's face turned pale. At the mention of his late father, his bravado began to crumble. Just then, one of the officers called out, "We've checked the security camera footage." On the large screen of the police vehicle, footage played. "Get out. You're just in the way." The footage showed Ashley forcing Tommy into the car. "Daddy, it's cold. Bear with it. Do what Mommy says." David's cold voice. Sighs escaped from the neighbors. More smartphone cameras appeared. "This is clear child abuse," the officer said. "Both of you will need to come to the station." Just then, Ashley's smartphone rang. A message from her agency appeared on the screen. "This is trending on social media. All contracts terminated." Then David's phone too. "Abuse allegations spreading. Channel suspended." Ashley's scream echoed through the residential area. "My life, my followers." David just stood there, dumbfounded. No trace of the former successful man remained. The perfect father from social media was gone. "Tommy," Maggie hugged her grandson. "It's okay now. No one can hurt you anymore." The child services worker was preparing documents. Officers were handcuffing David and Ashley. And the silence of the residential area was completely shattered. Maggie walked toward the ambulance, still holding Tommy. "Grandma," Tommy said in a small voice. "I don't have to sleep in the car anymore." "No, I will never let that happen." Maggie's voice carried strong determination. As the sun began to set over Scottsdale, a new wind was beginning to blow. 6 months after the incident, on a winter morning, Arizona's gentle sunlight warmed the kitchen of Maggie's new home. She had sold her previous house and bought this one near Desert Mountain High School for her new life with Tommy. A lemon tree was planted in the garden, and a small vegetable garden had been created. "Grandma, I finished my homework." Tommy's voice rang out from his room on the second floor. Unlike his previously frightened voice, it was now full of confidence. "Well done," Maggie answered with a smile. On the kitchen counter, chocolate chip cookies were waiting to be baked. The walls were decorated with Tommy's new drawings. Through twice-weekly psychological counseling, he had gradually become able to express his past trauma through art. From dark-colored car drawings to brightly colored family pictures. The change was definitely progressing. Good morning, Maggie. Sarah Watson from next door called over the garden fence. As the leader of the local neighborhood watch, she actively helped keep an eye on Tommy. Would it be all right if I took Tommy to the park with my kids after school today? Maggie nodded happily. The community's support was more heartening than she had imagined. The members of First Presbyterian Church had also warmly welcomed Tommy back to Sunday school and continued to pray for his recovery. On the table lay a newspaper with coverage of the incident. Influencer couple receives prison sentence for child abuse. Shocking case exposes dark side of social media. David and Ashley were imprisoned in separate facilities. The sentence had been severe: child abuse, neglect, and attempted evidence tampering. Ashley's fraudulent posts about fertility treatments were also scrutinized as fraud. The incident had sent shockwaves through the social media industry. What was really happening behind the facade of perfect families? This case would likely be remembered as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing viewer counts above all else. "Hey, Grandma," Tommy came down the stairs, speaking somewhat hesitantly. "What is it, dear? Do you think Daddy and Mommy are really reflecting on what they did in prison?" The question carried his lingering attachment to his parents and complicated emotions. Maggie sat down beside her grandson. "Those two need a lot of time, sweetheart. Time to think about what they did wrong, and what a real family truly means." In the rehabilitation program, David had begun showing signs of change. Ashley, however, was reportedly still trying to justify her actions. "But remember," Maggie continued, "you're not alone anymore. You have Grandma. Your teachers, Mrs. Sarah next door, everyone at church, we're all on your side." Tommy nodded slightly. On the desk lay his school report card. His evaluation had changed from "needs attention" to "excellent." He had made more friends and was enjoying his break times. The aroma of cookies wafted from the oven. "I'll help." Tommy jumped up energetically. Gone was his former withdrawn demeanor. "Oh, and today is book club day," Maggie said. "Everyone wants to see you." The book club members had been devotedly supportive over these 6 months. Starting with reading stories aloud, Tommy could now choose and read books by himself. Outside the window, neighborhood children rode past on their bicycles. Among them was Tommy's best friend Jason, who waved and called out, "Let's play after school." "Can I go?" Tommy's eyes sparkled. "Of course. But first." Maggie took the cookies out of the oven. "Let's taste these fresh from the oven." They laughed together over cookies. Maggie felt anew how precious these simple moments of happiness were. In the mailbox at the front door was a letter from Child Protective Services. It was official notification that permanent custody of Tommy had been transferred to Maggie. A new kind of family. Perhaps not perfect, but one bound by genuine love and real connections. The loneliness of living without her husband George still pierced her heart at times. But her days with Tommy were surely giving new meaning to her life. "Grandma," Tommy said, his mouth full of cookie. "Thank you for saving me." Maggie hugged her grandson. What a journey they had made from that small "help me" she had heard in the car. Outside the window, Arizona's winter sunlight. My name is Michelle. I'm a career woman in my early 30s working as a team leader in the marketing department. Looking back, meeting Eddie seemed like destiny. I met Eddie at a house party hosted by a mutual friend. After being introduced, we hit it off immediately. Eddie, in his late 30s, was well known locally as a vegan activist. Drawn to his vegan philosophy, I gradually began to embrace his beliefs. We enjoyed meals together, discussing ingredients and health, finding ourselves resonating with each other's values. After 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. Our wedding was held in a small church, a simple ceremony attended only by family and close friends. Yet this simplicity made it all the more touching, blessing the start of our new life together. Our newlywed life was even happier than I'd imagined. We enjoyed vegan meals together, tended to our vegetable garden on weekends, and cherished our time in nature. Influenced by Eddie's vegan philosophy, I gradually came to enjoy life as a vegan myself, finding satisfaction in this healthy lifestyle. In the midst of these happy days, we were blessed with our daughter, Ava. Her birth brought us the greatest joy we'd ever known. The moment she was born, I was overwhelmed with indescribable happiness. Eddie, too, renewed his determination to watch over Ava's growth with a sense of fatherly responsibility and joy. Ava grew steadily, and we did our best for her, taking utmost care to ensure her healthy development. Every time we saw her smile, our love grew even deeper. Life after Ava's birth was a continuous stream of joy and challenges. Every time we held her tiny hands, our hearts were filled with warmth. We continued to shower her with love. However, these happy days wouldn't last long. As Ava grew, we faced unexpected difficulties. Still, I was determined to do my best for our family and face any challenge that came our way. When Ava was 6 months old, we decided to start her on solid food. Eddie and I were eager to provide healthy vegan food and planned to incorporate many vegetables into her diet. We decided to start with vegetable juice for her first solid food. Watching her enjoy nature's bounty filled us with happiness. However, one day, right after giving Ava spinach juice, something went wrong with her body. Her face suddenly turned red, and she began crying violently. At first, we didn't know what was happening and were just confused. "What's wrong, Ava? Are you okay?" I desperately tried to calm her while holding her close. Eddie also approached worriedly. "Michelle, something's not right. This isn't normal." At that moment, red rashes began spreading across Ava's body, and her breathing became rough. We immediately rushed her to the emergency room. Upon arrival, the doctors responded quickly. "Your daughter is having a severe allergic reaction. She needs immediate treatment," the doctor explained with a serious expression. I felt my chest tighten at those words. An allergic reaction? To what? We gave her spinach juice. Could that be the cause? Eddie asked the doctor. The doctor nodded. That's highly likely. We'll need detailed testing to avoid specific vegetable allergies in the future. Subsequent tests revealed that Ava was allergic to multiple vegetables. Not just spinach, but also carrots, broccoli, and other common vegetables triggered reactions. I was shocked. The reality that we would have to be extremely careful with Ava's diet from now on weighed heavily on me. Back home, I was determined to manage Ava's diet strictly. Following the doctor's guidance, I checked each ingredient carefully and took measures to avoid allergic reactions. Michelle, it's okay. Let's do everything we can for Ava, Eddie encouraged me and helped prepare meals. Thank you, Eddie. But I'm really worried. We have to be careful that she doesn't react to any ingredients from now on. I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. When Ava's condition stabilized, our hearts found a little peace. However, this incident became a major turning point for us. We vowed to pay even more attention and give more love to protect Ava's health. I felt we needed the resolve to overcome any difficulties that lay ahead as a family. When Ava turned 4, she suddenly began feeling unwell. At first, we thought it was just a cold, but her symptoms gradually worsened. Watching our once energetic Ava grow weaker, I felt deep anxiety. Mama, I don't feel good. Ava complained in a weak voice. Her face was pale, she had no appetite, and she couldn't sleep well at night. It's okay, Ava. You'll feel better soon. While encouraging her, I felt growing concern and anxiety inside. One day, Ava's condition suddenly deteriorated. Hit with high fever and severe vomiting, I immediately rushed her to the hospital, carrying her in my arms. Along the way, holding her tiny hand, I prayed desperately, please, please help Ava. Upon reaching the hospital, doctors immediately took Ava to the emergency room. I waited in the waiting room, feeling almost crushed by anxiety. Time seemed to pass so slowly, and my heart was racing. After a while, the doctor came to me and said, Ava's condition is very serious. She needs detailed examination and treatment. How did this happen? I asked, fighting back tears. While we can't determine the exact cause at this point, given her symptoms, there's a possibility it could be a rare disease. The doctor's words were calm but weighty. A rare disease. Those words echoed in my head, and I couldn't accept this reality. Ava was only 4 years old, so small, innocent, and precious. I felt like collapsing right there, but somehow managed to stay strong. What should we do? I asked the doctor. Our first priority is to stabilize her condition. After that, we'll conduct detailed tests and determine a specific treatment plan. The doctor encouraged me with these words. That night, I stayed by Ava's side in her hospital room, holding her tiny hand. Ava, Mama will always be here with you. You'll definitely get better, so stay strong. Ava smiled faintly and whispered, Mama, thank you. At her words, my tears fell. Eddie also rushed to the hospital, and together we prayed for Ava's recovery. Michelle, Ava is strong. She'll definitely overcome this, he said while holding my shoulder. The days that followed were filled with ups and downs as we watched Ava's condition change. As detailed examinations progressed, her body seemed to be slowly moving toward recovery, but the doctors explained that we couldn't let our guard down yet. "Michelle, all we can do is stay by her side and give her our love," Eddie said, and I nodded. "Yes, Eddie. We must support her." I strengthened my resolve and renewed my determination to do everything for Ava. I believed it was our family's mission to keep fighting for Ava. As Ava's hospitalization continued, Eddie became increasingly immersed in his vegan beliefs. He devoured various health-related literature and research, becoming convinced that a vegan diet would be effective in treating Ava. "Michelle, look at this. As it says here, vegan diet strengthens the immune system. We should give this diet to Ava." Eddie excitedly showed me a book. "But Eddie, Ava is allergic to vegetables. Besides, the doctors haven't said that a vegan diet would be suitable for her condition." I calmly objected, but Eddie wouldn't listen. "The doctors are trapped in traditional treatments. We should believe more in the power of nature. Ava's body has the power to heal naturally. A vegan diet is necessary to help that." Eddie's eyes burned with conviction. At the hospital, Eddie strongly demanded the introduction of a vegan diet to the doctors. However, the doctors firmly opposed it, citing Ava's allergies. "We prioritize Ava's safety. She needs certain nutrients, and there's a risk that a vegan diet could trigger her allergic reactions." The doctor explained calmly, but Eddie wasn't convinced. From that day on, Eddie began secretly bringing vegan food during visits. When I noticed, I immediately warned him. "Eddie, what are you doing? This is dangerous. Michelle, this is for Ava. You need to understand." Eddie responded forcefully, but his words made me uneasy. One day, when I entered the hospital room, I found Ava suffering with a red face. Eddie had secretly given her vegetables again. "Ava, are you okay?" I rushed to her side and held her as she struggled to breathe. The doctor quickly arrived and administered emergency treatment to Ava. Thankfully, her symptoms soon stabilized, but I was filled with anger and fear. "Eddie, this is the limit. Your beliefs are putting Ava's life at risk." I shouted at him. "Michelle, I'm doing what's best for Ava. I believe vegan food will save her." Eddie's voice didn't waver, but uncertainty and confusion flickered in his eyes. "Your beliefs might be right. But endangering Ava's life is unacceptable," I stated firmly. Since this incident, I became increasingly wary of Eddie's actions. I strongly felt that his beliefs were dividing our family and putting Ava's life at risk, which had to be avoided at all costs. For Ava's sake, I renewed my determination to fulfill my responsibility as a mother. Several weeks passed without Ava's condition stabilizing. During her continued hospital stay, tension grew between Eddie and me. Eddie still firmly believed that a vegan diet would be effective in treating Ava, and his conviction seemed to grow stronger by the day. One day, as I sat by Ava's bedside holding her small hand, I watched her peaceful sleeping face and prayed silently. Suddenly, the hospital room door opened, and Eddie entered. He carried a large bag filled with colorful vegetables. "Eddie, what are you doing?" I raised my voice in surprise and anxiety. "Michelle, I'm going to feed these vegetables to Ava. Vegan food will save her." Eddie's eyes shone with fanatical intensity. "But I told you Ava has allergies. This is too dangerous." I desperately tried to stop him, but Eddie ignored me and approached Ava. "Ava, eat this. This will cure your illness," Eddie said gently while bringing a spoon to Ava's mouth. "Papa, stop," Ava said weakly, but Eddie wouldn't listen. "It's okay, Ava. Vegan food will cure your illness." Eddie continued forcing vegetables into Ava's mouth. Trembling with fear and anger, I tried to stop him. "Eddie, stop. This is wrong." At that moment, Ava's face swelled and turned red, and she began coughing violently. Her breathing became rapidly labored, and I immediately pressed the nurse call button. "Help! Ava is..." I screamed. Doctors and nurses rushed in and administered emergency treatment to Ava. I held Ava's hand with trembling hands, praying she would be all right. Thankfully, Ava's symptoms soon stabilized, but my heart was filled with anxiety and anger that felt like it would break me. Eddie stood there, pale-faced. "For Ava's sake, we must follow the doctor's instructions. Please, stop forcing things," I desperately told him. That night, watching over Ava in her hospital room, I held her small hand. While feeling anger and fear about Eddie's actions, I continued thinking about what would be best for Ava. I was determined to take any measures necessary to protect her safety and health. I was deeply concerned about the danger Eddie's actions posed to Ava. No matter how strong his beliefs were, putting Ava's life at risk was unacceptable. I decided to consult with the doctors about protecting Ava. "Doctor, we need to take measures against my husband. His actions have gone too far," I pleaded earnestly. The doctor nodded with a serious expression. "We feel the same way as you do. We must prioritize Ava's safety. Let's think about how to convince Eddie." That afternoon, the doctor explained their plan to me. "Michelle, this is quite a harsh measure, but we'll tell Eddie that Ava's condition is extremely dangerous to make him change his behavior." I hesitated for a moment but decided it was necessary for Ava's safety. "Yes, please do." The next day, the doctor called Eddie in and began speaking with a serious face. "We have very serious news about Ava's condition." "What do you mean?" Eddie stared at the doctor tensely. "Ava's condition has severely deteriorated, and she's in critical condition. Her life is in danger if this continues." The doctor calmly but gravely delivered the lie. "No, that can't be," Eddie shouted. His face turned pale, and his eyes widened in fear. "Vegan food will save her. This can't be wrong." "Unfortunately, due to the allergic reactions triggered by the vegetables you've given her, Ava's body is reaching its limit. Right now, the most important thing is to avoid causing her stress and let her rest." The doctor's words were calm, but their content was shocking to Eddie. How did this happen? Eddie turned to me with tearful eyes. I was only trying to do what's best for Ava. Eddie, we're all trying to do what's best for Ava. But your actions are putting her in danger. I said quietly but firmly. Let's follow the doctor's instructions now. That's what's best for Ava. I just wanted to save Ava. Eddie collapsed there, holding his head. How did this happen? Eddie, we must overcome this difficulty together. Let's do what's best for Ava. I placed my hand on his shoulder, gently encouraging him. Afterward, Eddie fell into a state of derangement, and his behavior became increasingly unstable. Doctors and nurses began monitoring him and restricting his access to Ava's hospital room. I decided to distance myself from Eddie, prioritizing Ava's safety. After Eddie fell into derangement and the doctors began keeping him away to protect Ava's safety, one emotion swirled in my heart: deep anger and a desire for revenge. The fury over his actions endangering Ava grew steadily within me. In the quiet of the hospital room, holding Ava's small hand, I felt my resolve solidifying. I can no longer forgive Eddie. I cannot overlook how his beliefs have hurt Ava. One night, I secretly began discussions with the nurses and doctors. What can we do to protect Ava? We must take action to stop Eddie's behavior. We also prioritize Ava's safety. We should consider legal measures to keep Eddie away. The doctor said with a serious expression. Yes, I've been thinking about that too. We need to legally corner him and prevent him from approaching Ava. I responded calmly, but my words carried determination. A few days later, I consulted with a lawyer and began proceedings to obtain a restraining order against Eddie. While listening to my story, the lawyer explained the legal procedures. Michelle, it's important to gather evidence to protect you and Ava's safety. We need to show that Eddie's actions are harmful to Ava. I understand. I'll provide all the records. I'll reveal everything he did to Ava. I answered with firm resolve. Simultaneously, I made Eddie's actions public through social media. My plan was to socially corner him by widely sharing how his vegan beliefs had become excessive and harmed our daughter. For Ava's sake, I must reveal everything. Everyone needs to know how dangerous his actions are. I told myself this as I prepared to take action. I also consulted with friends and sought their cooperation. They were shocked by my story but promised to help. Michelle, we'll lend our strength too. Let's do our best for Ava. Their encouragement gave me courage. Everyone, I need to speak up as a mother. I want you to know that my daughter Ava's life was put in danger. My husband Eddie forced his vegan beliefs on her and insisted on giving her vegetables she was allergic to. As a result, Ava faced a life-threatening situation. This post spread rapidly, attracting many people's attention. By making Eddie's actions public, I widely exposed the danger of his beliefs while taking concrete actions to protect Ava. Michelle, this is causing quite a reaction, one of my friends informed me. Many people sympathize with your courage and are angry about Eddie's actions. Encouraged by this response, I decided to take another step. I informed Eddie's workplace and family about his actions, telling them how socially dangerous he was. His colleagues, superiors, and family were shocked by these facts and began reconsidering their relationships with him. Michelle, here's all the information about Eddie. We've gathered evidence to support your claims, including his past behavior and statements. Using the information provided by the lawyer, I proceeded with plans to corner Eddie further. What he did to Ava is nothing short of abuse. I explained to the police how legally problematic Eddie's actions were. The police took this matter seriously and began investigating Eddie. We will legally pursue Eddie's actions. He will never be allowed to contact Ava again. The police officer's words gave me a sense of relief. Next, I filed for divorce from Eddie. Working with my lawyer, I demanded custody and proceeded with legal measures to ensure Ava's safety. The court battle was tough, but I never gave up. For Ava's sake, I must win at all costs. I took the stand with this vow in my heart. With evidence and testimony in place, the judge accepted my claims. Finally, I won custody and succeeded in separating Ava from Eddie. Now Ava is safe. As I left the courthouse, I shed tears of relief. Eddie's downfall didn't end there. He was arrested on charges of abuse and received a prison sentence in court. Having lost his social credibility and his job, he became completely isolated. Michelle, now you and Ava can start a new life. My friends congratulated me. Thank you, everyone. This was all necessary for Ava. I answered with a smile. I had fought with everything I had for Ava's safety and future. And as a result, a new life was beginning. Ava, our new life starts now. I held Ava's hand tightly and stepped forward with new determination. Several months have passed since our new life began. Ava's health improved day by day, and our bond grew even stronger. Having overcome past difficulties, we reaffirmed our trust and love for each other and began walking toward a new future. One evening, I was preparing dinner with Ava. She wore a small apron and was seriously focused on cutting vegetables. The sight made me smile. "Mama, I'll make the salad today. With vegetables I can eat," Ava said happily. "Thank you, Ava. Your salad will surely be delicious," I answered while watching over her. After dinner, we read picture books together in the living room. Ava sat on my lap, happily turning the pages. Seeing her smile, I felt the past pain gradually healing. "Mama, today's story was so much fun," Ava said contentedly. "Yes, Ava. Every day is a new adventure," I answered while hugging her. That night, before putting Ava to bed, I told her, "Ava, you're such a strong girl. Let's continue to spend happy days together with Mama forever." Ava smiled and said, "Yes, Mama. I love you too," before falling peacefully asleep. Our life was peaceful and filled with happiness. Seeing Ava's health recover and watching her grow energetically was my greatest joy. We cherished each day and held new hope for the future. One morning, I visited the hospital with Ava. It was the day of her regular checkup, and I was a bit nervous about the results. While waiting in the waiting room, I held Ava's hand tightly. "Mama, it's okay. I'm healthy," Ava said cheerfully. "Yes, Ava. You're such a strong girl." I smiled, though I still felt anxious inside. When we entered the examination room, the doctor greeted us with a warm smile. He carefully checked Ava's charts and test results. "I have Ava's test results. It's wonderful news. Ava's illness is completely cured. While regular checkups will still be necessary, her future looks bright," the doctor said with a gentle smile. "Really?" I asked, hardly believing it. "Yes, Ava has worked very hard. From now on, just live a healthy life and enjoy your days together." The doctor nodded firmly. Fighting back tears, I hugged Ava. "Ava, I'm so glad. You've done so well." "Yes, Mama. I'm going to get even healthier," Ava said happily. Afterward, I took Ava back to our new home, where we started our new life. Ava quickly adapted to the new environment and regained her smile. Her condition gradually improved, and the doctors reported good progress. A few months later, I met a new partner. He was kind and caring, and quickly bonded with Ava. The three of us spent enjoyable time together, and our hopes for the future grew increasingly stronger. "Michelle, you and Ava are truly a wonderful family," he said with a smile. "Let's continue to spend happy days together." "Thank you. We're happy being with you too." I squeezed his hand back, feeling truly grateful. While many challenges may still await us in the future, I'm confident we can overcome them by believing in our bonds with each other. We will continue building happy days together, hand in hand. I believe Ava's smile will be our support, and our love will light up our new future. "Ava, let's go on many more adventures together." I smiled at her. "Yes, Mama. We'll always be together," Ava answered with a beaming smile. And so, Michelle and Ava began walking toward a new life filled with hope. Their bond will forever remain strong and unshakable.